Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and I've spent the week with Fiat's new 500e. And when I say new, it's not new to the world, but it is new to the States. They've had this thing in Europe for a couple of years now, but now that it's here in the States and I've spent a full week with it, we're going to cover the best and the rest and see just what makes this thing a little bit special, or maybe not. The first thing we're going to talk about on the con side of the video is price. And price is really the thing where all the rest of the stuff kind of stems from. If this was a bit cheaper, a lot of these problems would go away. So the problem then is just it's a little bit more expensive than maybe it should be for the range and use case that you're getting here. The red, which we have here, is kind of the base entry. It's $34,000 with destination. You can get the Inspired by Music trim, which is a little bit more luxurious with a leather interior, but that's going to run you $37,500 with destination. And same thing with the Inspired by Beauty with that beautiful rose gold color. And approaching $40,000 puts it in the range of competitors that have almost double the range. So it does become an expensive proposition, albeit one that's dripping with style. There's a little deer crashing the chute. Mom and sibling just ran through, but this one is sad. I don't know if you can hear it, it's going meh. Now I do want to talk about the range and then therefore the use case. And this is something I've been struggling with all week because according to the EPA, this thing maxes out at about 149 miles of range. Now, I've been driving this thing largely around town because that's what you're going to do. And when I took it off the charger, I see 100% like around low 60s, like a 162. So I wouldn't be super confident if this was my only car. And to use this, you kind of have to have a very rigid schedule, a very predictable lifestyle that doesn't really ever take you super far from home. Like technically, I think I could get away with using this thing as my only car, but I'd probably have to stop my freelance production stuff because that takes me to Madison and takes me to Chicago, and then I'm worrying about charging to get home. I may be able to get away with still doing my on-air stuff at Road America because that's only about mid 40 miles away from my house, so that's really only in the summer as well, so I'm not going to have to worry about the cold weather. So I think I could get away with this, but there would just be more stress than I think I'd be willing to deal with. And a lot of this comes from the fact that it's just small, and there's a small battery pack here. 42 kilowatt hours, which is a lot bigger than the previous gen, which was about 25. But for reference, things like the Ioniq 5, the Hyundai that we like so much, that's about 76 kilowatt hours. So you can do DC fast charging in here in like 35 minutes. It'll do like 10 to 80% in that time, but what it wants you to do is level 2. So when I'm using my Emporia at home, I can charge this thing like flat to full in about 6 hours, which is great. And realistically, like I said, I could probably get away with it. But one of the nice things that Fiat does is with every purchase of a 500e, they're going to give you a free level 2 wall charger. I still like my Emporia, and if you want an Emporia like me, you can buy one down in the description. It's going to save you some money, so check that out. And the next thing is that this thing is just tiny, and that's by design, and that really adds to the cuteness and the whole aesthetic and aura of this thing. But it does have some trade-offs when you actually want to use it for something more than just going to the shops. Like for one, your trunk is under 8 cubic feet, which isn't huge, but you can fold the rear seats. It's not going to be a flat floor, but it's relatively practical, I guess. And then in terms of the rear seats, probably would just leave them down because I do not fit. You could probably fit a child back there, but anyone even approaching 6 feet or even 5'9" maybe is going to have real troubles with the knee room. But if you do manage to fit someone back there, you have a cup holder for them. So individually, the trunk space and the rear seat space aren't exactly huge, but it's nice to have the rear seats in a pinch. But the reality is, it's nice to have either one because you can just fold the rear seats down and then you have a bigger trunk. So it's not wildly impractical. I did go to Costco and do a couple other errands with this car this week and it was fine. And our next point has to do with interior quality and materials. And again, it relates back to that first thing we talked about, and that's just the price is a little bit too high for what you're getting in here. The seats on this 500 red are cloth. They do have some red piping and accenting, and they do say Fiat embossed all over them, but they're manual. They're relatively comfortable, but they are going to be heated and leather in your Inspired by Music and Inspired by Beauty cars. The interior is very minimal, but you do have loads of headroom. It's just that all the materials do feel kind of cheap. Any plastic or really any detailing that isn't a seat in here does have a texture, a sound to it that doesn't feel super great. But you do have the red dash accent that I think adds to the personality of the car. And you do have some door handle pocket details and that I think help elevate the character a little bit. I also do like the 2-spoke steering wheel. It's a nice place to rest my hand down at the bottom. You do have a single cup holder in the front, but you got one in the rear too. But they actually do a good job managing your storage in here for such a small footprint, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. But switching gears and talking about all the great things about this 500e, I want to talk about the weight and the front wheel drive thing first. Now this thing tips the scales at just over 3,000 pounds, like just over, which that makes it the lightest EV that you can buy on the market today. It's lighter than some Honda Civics even, so it's genuinely light. We at the Mama event took this thing around the track and it's pretty cool. It's kind of fun. It's really playful, but it is just front wheel drive, and that's for a number of reasons. Like for one, you put the motor on the front, you get the regen on the front. That's where all the weight transfer goes when you're braking. So your regen braking is more efficient and you're going to recoup more energy, which is helpful when you only have this much range. And then the rear brakes can be drum brakes because disc brakes are going to add more friction, thus more resistance, and it's going to suck your range down just that little bit more. So the drum brakes in the back make sense. It's also going to be better in the snow. More weight up front on that front axle is going to help it grip a little bit better in inclement weather. And the last thing is, putting the motor up front, you're not going to have all that complexity and all that stuff in the back, which means you can have a bigger trunk. So it makes a lot of sense when you think about it that way. And then when it does come to styling, this is the cutest little thing that I've seen on the market in probably 10 years. It has genuinely snapped necks as I've driven past people this week. Now this 500e for this generation is longer, wider, and taller than the last generation. And like we said earlier, we have the red trim, which you can get either in this red paint, but I'd personally get mine in the white because it leaves then the wing mirrors as red, and you can get some green accents and make it real Italian. You can upgrade to the inspired by either music or beauty cars, which you can either get in black for music or rose gold for beauty, and the rose gold is really, really cool. But you get very cute little details. You get an Italian flag in your front fender. It's just a little detail, it doesn't do much of anything. On the sides you get your 17-inch wheels, and you have window treatments that say 500 on them at the back of the car, and your charger is on your rear passenger side, and you do get little Easter eggs in the taillights like Torino on either side. And your 500 logo on the back has a blue accent as well. This cute little thing has gotten so much attention. I've actually been shocked this week because yeah, it is just crazy cute. And then there's just that kind of indescribable quality that you get here where it just makes me smile. Like I found myself in here just smiling. Not necessarily because it's super engaging to drive, it's not a performance thing, it's not a luxury thing, but it's so small and it's so cute and it's just so easy. It's almost like it takes any stress away from driving. I can park it anywhere. I don't have any thought about like, oh, I need to move it out of my driveway, or oh, I need to run a quick errand to the corner. I don't want to heat cycle my engine, let it warm up, and then I just get in it, I bop out, I come back. It's super easy. I don't know, there's something to the small, cute character here that I just like. And it's just fun, and it's just cute, and it just makes me smile. And when it comes to technology, I have everything that I need in here. I'm not going to have a head-up display, but I don't really need it. I do have a 7-inch digital cluster. It's rounded and it shows you lots of information, everything that I would need for this car. And then in your center, your screen is 10.25 inches, and you got Uconnect 5, which is pretty good. It's snappy once the graphics have loaded. It's otherwise a little bit slow, but you get wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Again, that's really what I'm going to use. Plus you have different screens that show you EV coaching and how to drive more efficiently to maximize your range. Plus you have Alexa built in, you can get over-the-air updates. There's no 360 camera, but I wouldn't expect that from something like this. And your wireless charger really works. It functions not only as storage, but it genuinely charges your phone pretty reliably. And when it comes to your safety suite, we don't have much on this red trim here, but if you go up to the more expensive Inspired By line of cars, you can get adaptive cruise and you can get lane keep depending on how much money you want to spend. So from a tech perspective, again, it's got really everything you're going to need. And we don't usually talk about this specific thing, but I think with something this small and this well packaged, it is relevant to talk about the excellent use of space that they've managed to pull off here, as opposed to something like we were in the other week, the CX-70 from Mazda. It's a huge footprint that manages to not feel so huge inside. This is the opposite of that. They've done a great job packaging to maximize interior storage and make it feel big. Your glove box, for instance, is huge. Your center console is deep. Your wireless charger cubby also works as a storage cubby. You've got door pockets, and your rear seats and trunk are fairly well optimized. So what that results in is a lot of storage, actually, in little places here and there. there. Plus this thing is super tall, loads of headroom, so it makes it feel a lot bigger than it actually is. So I think they've done a great job in terms of packaging and maximizing the space, or at least the perceived space in this car. And then before we go for a drive, there's just a couple little odds and ends that I think we should cover. Like for one, this car is produced in Italy. It says made in Torino all over the place, which we'll get to in a second, but what that means is you're not going to be eligible for tax credits. There might be some lease offers, but from the jump, if you're going to buy it straight up, it's not going to qualify for some federal tax incentives. And we talked about some exterior Easter eggs, but there's a few in the interior here. Like for one, you get this little retro Fiat in either door handle, and it says made in Torino, which is pretty cool. And then in your wireless charger, there's a skyline of, you guessed it, Torino, and behind your screen here, you've got the little 500 logo hidden. So some little character pieces to make the interior feel a little bit nicer. And when the car is on and you turn it off, it sounds like Christmas. Fa la 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 la. Fa la 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 indeed. But then when you want to go and turn the car on, foot on the brake, you press it once. Now the system is active, but it's not going to be driving ready. You have to hit the button again, and now it's ready to go. And then a more upbeat fa la la. And then you have 3 drive modes you control with this little toggle here. If you just push it up, it's not going to register. You want to do a push and hold, and then it's going to show up. So you've got normal, which is going to be your normal power delivery. You've got range mode, which, I have to hold. It's going to engage one pedal driving, and there's a Sherpa mode, which is going to do everything that it can to maximize your range. It's going to cap your top speed. It's going to cap your power output. Of course, you can overrule that if you use the full power of the pedal, if you floor it all the way. And it's also going to kill your air conditioning, which on a day where it's 98 degrees, come on, Milwaukee, I would like to have some AC. All right, Fiat 500e, foot down, 117 horsepower and 162 adorable pound-feet of torque. Okay, yeah, it's not fast, you know, but it's a single motor front wheel drive. It's barely over 3,000 pounds. It's small, it's cute, it's tiny. There's a charm to it, okay? It's not a performance car, it's not a luxury car. The ride is a little bit stiff. You get some road noise coming in. It's not wildly fast. The steering doesn't have a lot of feel, but it does change direction pretty well. But what it is a thing that has made me smile every day that I've driven it. And another thing, I have stuck to my normal weekly routine with this car, and it has done everything. It has done everything that I normally do for a week. I go to Costco, I get groceries, it has done everything. I even bought like a shelf with a box. Now granted, it's a box about this long and like this tall, but it has done everything. I haven't really had to worry about range because I just go out, pop out, do a couple errands, and then throw it back on the charger. So I'm leaving with 150-ish miles of range every time. Maybe in the winter it would be a little bit more stressful, but like for me, I'm self-employed, I work from home most of the time. I could use this. Like genuinely, I could make this thing work. Now, when I do producer stuff in like Chicago, I probably wouldn't want to take this unless I looked ahead for sure and knew that there was going to be a charger at wherever my location was or wherever the studio was. Then, okay, maybe. But if you don't do much highway, if you're just gonna do city stuff, if you're just gonna do suburb stuff, if you're just gonna do side street stuff, this is such a fun little thing. Is it too expensive? Yes, probably. But it's fun and it does work for my day-to-day life. It has worked. But there's definitely something to be said about that indescribable quality of just, I don't know. I'm a person that likes weird things or different things. I don't necessarily need the fastest 0 to 60. I don't need the quickest quarter mile. I'm not interested in that sort of stuff as much. But if it's a small, or if it's a car that has some unique personality, some unique character, that really, really speaks to me. And I think this makes a lot of sense for me. Now, I understand that I am a minority with my situation, but when you try to think of the use case for somebody that lives downtown or in a city environment, and you don't really need to do a lot of driving far away from the city, even if you go out to the suburbs, it's gonna do that. If you don't need to do long distance stuff, or if this is your third car, if you have 2 cars that can do road trips, if you split a garage with a partner or a family member and they have a bigger, I don't know, Ford Explorer or something that you can do longer trips, and then you just wanna have this to like commute back and forth to work, it's gonna do that. And I think there's definitely something to be said about that. I don't know, I found myself this week, Paulo really doesn't like this thing. It doesn't make sense objectively to him. The range isn't enough, it's too expensive. All of those things, I think, make sense. Those are fair points for him to have. But what I have found is I've been making excuses for this thing. Like, yeah, but it's cute, and yeah, but how often do you do that? Or yeah, but it's so small, and like, I just find myself apologizing or making excuses for it. And I don't know, it's just, there's just something about it that I like. And I'm not gonna continue to talk in circles. It's okay. As a car, as a thing to drive, just set your expectations. It is a novelty. It's all right. It's not super luxurious, it's not super fast, but it's gonna get you from A to B. It's gonna do it in style. You're gonna do it relatively comfortably, and it'll make you smile a little bit. And isn't that the point? So thank you to Fiat for letting us have a go in your 500e. Thank you to you for watching. And let me know down in the comments, would this thing make a lot more sense to you personally if it had another 50 miles of range, if it had a 200-mile range figure? Would that alleviate all of the problems that you have with it? Comments, and I'll see you in the next one.